What's up, everyone? My name is Ryan Hoffman. I am one of the admissions counselors here at Hobart William Smith Colleges. I am going to actually hand it over to Julia and Allie, who will be taking over. I will be answering any questions in the chat and asking Professor Ashdown any questions that you guys toss over in the chat. But thank you all for taking time out of your afternoon today to join in with Hobart William Smith Colleges.
It'd be great. Before you start, Julie, it'd be great if people could turn their cameras on so that I'm not talking to a bunch of black boxes would be awesome. Thanks.
Jeez.
Sorry,
Okay.
Julia.
No, sure. Oh, you're good. You're good. Okay, thank you for joining us via Zoom this afternoon. Before we get started, I'd like to ask everyone to keep their microphones on mute. This session is being recorded and we would like to limit extra noise as much as possible. Any questions you have can be submitted via the chat feature and we'll answer them. And I'll just introduce myself. I'm Julia. I'm a senior from Buffalo. I'm a psychology major and a political science minor. I'm also on the William Smith ice hockey team, and I'm currently working on a research project with Professor Ashdown and two other students on perceptions of sexual harassment. I also just accepted a job at M&T Bank. And Allie, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Allie Brien, and I'm a junior at HWS, and I'm from Westwood, Massachusetts. I'm a double major in psychology and applied linguistics, and I also have a minor in women's studies. I work in the psych department as a student worker to help professors and the secretary. And I'm also a member of Chorale, but I haven't been able to participate this year because of COVID. And I was recently accepted to the HWS chapter of the Psychology Honor Society, Psychi, and am the secretary. And I am also going to be participating in research at a different institution this summer. Professor Ashdown, can you tell us a little bit about your own background and the recent research and projects you have been working on?
Yeah, I can. Hi, everybody. This is my 10th year here at HWS. Before I came here, I was a professor at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks for a few years. I did graduate school in St. Louis, Missouri, and I did my undergraduate work at a big state school in Utah called Weber State. So the classes I teach here are mostly cultural psychology classes. So I teach a 200 level class on introduction to cultural psych. Then I teach a 300 junior level class. It's a seminar. And then I teach capstone research in cultural psychology. And in those classes, the focus is always around how larger cultural concepts and issues influence people's behavior. And like Julia said, she's working on some research with me. I always have some research going on with students. So right now I'm working with Julia and two other students on this project about perceptions on sexual harassment. And I'm also working on a project about research on what teenagers in Guatemala want for their future lives and careers. That's the place where I do most of my field work is in Guatemala. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, great. Professor Ashdown, can you explain a bit more about ways students and faculty collaborate both on research through general advising?
Yeah, so at HWS, once you declare a major, your academic advisor is someone one of the faculty members in the department that you declare in. So I don't think Julia or Allie are my advisees, but both of them have advisors who are members of the psychology faculty department. So you meet with your advisor once or twice a semester, particularly around the time to register for your next classes to make sure you're on track. And then we work with students on research. So probably about half of the faculty in the department right now have students working with them on a research project. And excuse me, what you do depends on what the research or what research the professor is working on. So I just recruited a whole bunch of students to work with me on some data analysis or some literature searching to work with some data that I just finished collecting with one of my collaborators in Saudi Arabia. So now we're doing a bunch of literature searching to start writing some papers on those projects. Other students will work with faculty one-on-one in like an internship kind of situation, or I have a student right now who's doing an independent study with me, and she's reading a bunch of articles and books and going to produce a big paper at the end of the semester on the intersection between feminism and mental health around the world, like a global perspective of feminism and global health, which will count as one of her classes in the psychology department. So there's lots of different ways that faculty work with students. A lot of it is up to you, how much you want to get involved. So Julia works with me on a research project. Not all students do that kind of stuff. Some of them do their classes and then we'll do internships outside. Like Allie's going to go and do a research internship at a different university over the summer to get that kind of experience. So there's a good opportunity for you to kind of figure out how you want to approach your interactions with faculty in the ways that fit what you want to do best.
Psychological science is a very diverse subject and students come to study it for a variety of reasons. Can you talk about the curriculum and the options students have to pursue their specific interests within the department?
Yeah, so we did just last year change the name of the department from the psychology department to the psychological science department because of how diverse the faculty are. So there are currently 8 of us, 8 faculty, 8 professors in the department, and each one of us has a different specialty or focus. So like I said, I do cultural psychology as well as adolescent development. We have another professor who does child development. We have one who does clinical and abnormal work. We have one who is an expert in personality, one who does social psychology, one who does cognitive psychology, one who does sensation and neuroscience, and another one who does cognitive psych work. So students get the opportunity after you take intro psychology and statistics, then you can start taking sophomore level classes in each of these different subfields of psychology. And then as juniors and seniors, you take advanced research classes in 2 of these different areas, plus an upper level seminar, which means there's only about 15 students in the class, and it's more of a like discussion-based course. And those are also focused on specific topics in psychology based on what that professor is an expert in. So you get kind of a broad introduction to psych science, your first 2 or 3 classes, and then as time goes on, you move into classes that are a lot more specific and a lot more focused on certain topics within the field, it kind of gives you an idea of what psychologists and psychology professors focus on in their own work.
Professor Ashdown, I mentioned that I'm pursuing the management development program at M&T Bank, but is that a trend for most students, or are there other things that students you've worked with have gone on to do after graduation?
Well, so it's not abnormal to have our majors move into business or finance kind of stuff like you are. But that's not the only thing that our students do, right? We every year we send a handful of students to graduate programs where they go work towards their own master's or PhD program. In fact, one of my former students, she's in her 2nd year this year as a professor herself at Ithaca College. So she graduated from William Smith and then went and got a PhD, and now she's a professor herself. We also send a lot of students into education. So students will major in psych science and do the teacher education program and go teach elementary school or high school. So we send students to lots of places. Some of them go right to graduate school in psychology. Some of them go and work in the psych field for a few years. Quite a few go into social work when they're done with psychology. But that's kind of the beauty of a degree in psychology, is it kind of opens up a bunch of these different opportunities where you can go into management or finance or business or education or research, and will have learned skills as a psych science major that will be effective at getting you those kind of jobs.
And so this is our last question before we open it up to the audience. Professor Ashdown, how do you make the case for the value of a liberal arts education and a psychology degree in today's society?
Yeah, so liberal arts is, the basic idea of what a liberal arts education is while you're gaining the skills to have a successful career through college, you're also getting a broad education in what it means to be a productive member of society in the way that you decide to define productivity, and what it means to be a good citizen and engaged in democracy and working to make the world a better place. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, of getting a good education so that you can be successful in your career, and also learning more about how the world works and how you want to find your place in the world. Which means that when you get a liberal arts education, it doesn't really matter what you major in. You're going to be taught how to become a good writer, a good thinker, a good speaker, and you're going to learn how to apply those skills to the field that you decide to major in. And like I said, psych science is one of those kind of majors that can prepare you specifically for a degree in psychology, but also sets you up for things like Julia's moving into finance and management. Allie wants to do some research next summer. So you can see two very different next steps for students who are both majoring in psych science. So it opens up these possibilities for you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Ashdown. For those watching, if you haven't already, please feel free to submit your questions through the chat. The first one is, what are some of the majors and minors that students have paired with psychology?
So lots of so at HWS, you can pair any other major or minor that you want to. So you could major in psych science and then minor in anything else we offer on campus. Typically, I know lots of students will major in psych and then they minor in things like sociology or women's studies or political science or anthropology. Those are all common double majors or minors. We also have a lot of students who will major in psych and will minor in biology or biochemistry because their plan is to go into like nursing school or their pre-med, and so they will combine psych with bio or something like that. But I've also had students who have double majored in psych and dance, for example. I have students who have double majored in psych and music or psychology and architecture. So you can combine your majors and minors however you want to. Most students find that there's something interesting about combining psychology with one of the social sciences like sociology, but you're definitely not limited to that.
Yeah, and I'm also going to add, you can also create an individual major like I did. I created an individual major in linguistics to combine it with that.
Right, yeah.
Can I study abroad as a psych major?
Yeah, not only can you study abroad as a psych major, but we really encourage psych majors to study abroad. I've been lucky enough, I have directed 2 study abroad programs myself here. One, I took students to Ecuador and Peru for a semester. And then a few years later, I took students to Argentina for a semester. And depending on how things go with COVID, I'm supposed to take students to Vietnam this coming fall for the semester. So we are really flexible as a department in helping make sure that you can get some psych credits if you need them while you're abroad. So usually you can get a psych credit, at least one psych credit, almost everywhere you would study abroad. Sometimes you can get 2 psych credits when you study abroad. So we do definitely try to get our students to go abroad while they're here. We also do a lot of short-term programs. So sometimes you can't make a full semester abroad program work, but you can do like a 3-week abroad program, which would get you 1 credit or 1 class. So I've done one of those with students in Guatemala, and I'm planning on doing one next year in Costa Rica with about 25 students, taking them to Costa Rica for 3 weeks in January. So lots of chances for you to study abroad as a psych major.
So this one's for Allie and I. Why did we choose HWS? Well, I mentioned earlier that I play hockey, so that was a pretty big reason why I chose it. I'm also from Buffalo, so it's fairly close to home. And also just coming to the campus, it's very beautiful, and I think that really drew me to coming here.
Yeah, for me, like my parents both went here, and I grew up coming to Geneva in the summers. So Geneva has always been a big part of why I chose it, because it's just beautiful here, and I also know people here and love the community. And also another big factor was like the faculty and how they're really invested in you, and you can develop really close relationships with them.
So our next question is, what was our favorite psych class? For me, mine was probably a tie between child psych and then also psychopathology. Child psych was the one that made me want to major in psychology.
But Julia, I don't teach either one of those classes.
I only had you for stats, so that's a tough one to say. It's my favorite. No, and then psychopathology was probably the hardest class I've ever taken, but it was one of the most rewarding, and that probably sounds cheesy, but it's true. It was super interesting, and that really goes into like mental health and stuff like that. So those would probably be my 2 favorite.
Yeah, I definitely agree that psychopathology was one of my favorites, and like it was really challenging but so interesting. And I never took child psychology, but I'll say another favorite was adolescent psychology because Professor Ashdown taught it.
Allie's also taking a class with me this semester, so she has to suck up now as much as she can for her grade this semester.
And then Professor Ashdown, what's your favorite psychology class to teach? Was a question.
That's a good question. I'm really lucky I get to teach all of the classes I teach I like. But I do really like teaching statistics when it's my turn, because it's usually a class that students are afraid of taking. They're kind of intimidated by taking statistics. And I like taking students who are afraid of stats and working with them through the semester, getting them to the point where they aren't so scared. They realize it's not as hard as they thought it was. They can do it. Yeah, so I like statistics. I also really like my upper level seminar class. So this semester I'm teaching psychology for the public good. And there's only 15 students in the class. So we read, I don't know, what do we read, Allie? Maybe 60, 70 pages for each class session.
Yeah.
And then we spend an hour and a half talking about what we read about. And our topic right now is on addiction. So we're really getting into like the biological basis of addiction, the psychological basis of addiction, differences between addictions to substances and addictions to behaviors, and how psychologists can be more involved in the process of helping, society confront some pretty major addiction challenges in our country right now. So being able to get really deep into one particular topic for a semester is something I really enjoy doing with students too.
Another question for Professor Ashdown. Can you touch upon the research aspect of psychology?
So all of the psychology professors do research. That's part of our job. So we're always conducting research. We're always submitting articles to journals to be published. Most of us do that with students helping us, like Julia's helping me on a project we're working on now. A lot of the papers that I've published in the 10 years I've been here has been with students. So a lot of students will get authorship and be published authors by the time they graduate, depending on how much work you do with the faculty member. And then just by being a psych major, you're going to get experience doing research in 3 different classes. So you take a sophomore level research methods class where you do a small research project, and then you take 2 senior level capstone research classes where you get practice doing more advanced kinds of research, which is not typical for a school like HWS. Most other small liberal arts schools don't provide their students with those kinds of research experiences. And what we know is most of our students who go on to do graduate school or go on to careers in research, it's because they had that experience as undergraduates. It's not really very common in other places. So we really focus on the idea here that psychology is a science, that what we know about psychology is based on good scientific methodology. And so we really do what we can to make sure students learn how to be good scientists, both in doing science and in thinking about science that other people have done and published.
So another question we got is, have you seen the curriculum help students on a personal level? Like maybe mindfulness or social or personality psych?
Yeah, so I know in the classes around psychopathology and some of the classes in child development, those professors teach some practices, some skills like mindfulness, meditation. I think Professor Kingery incorporates some yoga kind of stuff into the classes that she teaches, her upper level classes. So there's definitely some of that going on. The department also tries to maintain a bit of a boundary between us being your professors and not therapists, right? Because we have to maintain those kinds of boundaries. We do have a really good counseling center here if students need it, but there's definitely things you're learning as a psych major that become applicable to you just on an everyday basis, right? You can't spend your time learning about how and why people think and act the way they do without it then starting to get you to question why you do what you do and think about what you might want to change or not in your own life. So yeah, I think maybe the psychology curriculum is a little more directly applicable to your lives than, say, if you were going to major in math, right? But yeah, because you're just learning about people, right? Instead of how to do calculus, I guess. So it's a little more immediately applicable to your lives.
Yeah, great. Are there any first year seminars revolved around psychology?
So the psych science department usually offers at least one first year seminar every year. for fall of 2021, Professor Anglin, who's the personality psychology professor, is going to be teaching that. I haven't heard yet what her topic will be on. But we do usually have at least one first year seminar every year from the psychology department.
Awesome. And then the last question we have is, how do you get graded in psychology?
How do you what?
How do you get graded?
That depends on the professor. So the way it works at HWS is each professor sets the requirements for the grades in their class. So the way I grade my classes is different than most other professors. I don't use points in my classes. I just grade every assignment as you either pass the assignment or you fail the assignment. It's just pass, fail. And then your final grade in the class is based on how many assignments you passed and how many assignments you didn't pass. And that's what leads to your final grade. Other professors use more traditional grading where like 90% of the points or higher means you get an A, 80% or higher means you get a B. So that you figure out the first day of class when the professor gives you a syllabus and kind of lists out what you have to do in that class to get a particular grade. I'll tell you, one of the things, this isn't directly about how you're graded, but one of the things I think students are surprised about when they start taking psychology classes is how much you have to write. That psychology students and psychologists, we write a lot. And so one of the goals we have as a department is to really help teach our students how to be really good writers, really clear writers. And then you'll at some point have to do a few presentations because communicating clearly in presentations and giving speeches in class is also really important to us. So those two things will be part of your time as a psychology major, no matter which classes you take. You'll write a lot, you'll give some presentations, and you have to take statistics. Stats is required for all psychology majors and minors. And that's usually the second class or sometimes the third class, but usually take that your first 2 or 3 semesters that you're at HWS, you'd have to take statistics.
I think that's it.
Anybody else have any other questions? Because if you don't ask more questions, I have to go back to work on a grant I'm writing, which I don't want to do. So if you have other questions, you can use my time. All right.
Well, this is all the time we have today. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, actually, someone just asked, Maggie Adams. For a student going in undecided, would you consider them behind in psych curriculum?
No, Maggie, because all students technically come to HWS undecided. Most departments won't let you declare a major until you're a sophomore. So some students come in knowing like, I really want to do psychology, and that's what they stick with. But no, most students don't declare their major until they're a sophomore, and the curriculum is designed to make sure you can finish on time by even if you don't declare until you're a sophomore. Sometimes some majors don't even take intro psychology until they're a sophomore. They don't take any psych classes their first year at all, and then they start and they have plenty of time to finish.
Yeah, I don't think I did until I was a sophomore, actually.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. So plenty of time to figure that out after you get here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you change your mind and decide as a senior you want to switch to a psych major, then things might be a little dicey, right? Getting you done in time. But you definitely don't have to have your mind made up before you get here.
Well, all right. I think thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any further questions or you'd like to get in touch with one of us later on the decision-making process, we also have our emails dropped in the chat for you, or the office admissions can contact us as well. So thank you so much and best of luck as you make your final decision.